Hello and welcome. My name is Dwayne Huff, founder and CEO of Influence Seminars, 23-year sales veteran and creator of a training program called Comprehensive Sales Influence, How to Achieve Ongoing Sustainable Sales Growth. And I created this video for you, the sales leader or the sales manager, to help your sales team achieve that ongoing sustainable sales growth, or most specifically, consistent sales results that you can measure, that you can get immediate results and sustain results over time so that you increase your sales number every single month, starting when? Right now. So you're in the right place if this is the situation. Maybe your sales professionals and most sales teams that I work with, 20% of the people in that sales team are crushing it, 80% are barely making it. It's the Pareto principle. It happens in just about every sales team, and that's why more than 47.2% of sales reps across industries do not make quota, at least not every single month. So if your sales team is absolutely crushing it without doubt every single month, every single quarter, this video training is not for you. And it's not for them. It's not going to help anything. Congratulations, you have won, and I have nothing to offer. But if 1, 2, or any amount of your salespeople aren't consistently crushing it, exceeding their sales goals, exceeding their quota, and if they're on the sales roller coaster, one month they're up, the next month they're down, they're freaking out, you don't know if they're going to make it, they don't know if they're going to make it, then this training I've created just for you. And it's a very small piece of my comprehensive sales influence training. Now, why am I doing this? Well, several reasons, actually. I'm going to be completely transparent. This is the way I put myself out there and market, let people know about my brand, but it's also the way that I give back and help sales professionals achieve their goals, because the first 6 years of my sales career were absolutely dismal. I struggled to the tune of going through 9 jobs in the first 6 years. And I think one of the reasons was I didn't have good mentorship. I didn't have good training. I got a little bit of product knowledge, not a lot of selling skills, and definitely not examples that I could follow. And so I guess the second reason that I want to do this is to help your sales team succeed and not have to go through that pain that I went through. Worst case scenario in this training, you're going to get some ideas that's going to help move the needle with your sales professionals. Best case scenario, you're going to absolutely love this training. You're going to want more of it, or you're going to want to work with me directly, and that's why I'll have you reach out to me if that's the case. Or you may love it so much you share it with someone who can actually bring me in to work with them or do a training for your people. But this is no obligation. You don't have to work with me. I just want to share this with you because it's going to make your life as a sales manager or a sales leader easier. So at the end of the day, bottom line, you're going to get some value from this that you can pass along to your sales team. And you can skip all the way through this part with your sales team and play the rest of it that I'm going to get into for them, or you can just absorb it, take it, and apply it with your sales team. So without further ado, I'm going to give you 3 steps to sell more consistently starting right now. And I'm just going to give you a warning and a heads up. When I reveal these, at first on the surface, you're going to think they're absolutely simplistic and basic. Until I give you the context and the process for doing it, then you're going to see the depth, and you're going to see that even though it's simple, if you apply it or have your salespeople apply it consistently, you're not only going to get immediate results, but you're going to be able to sustain them over time and get predictability and consistency in the results. So without further ado, let me jump in here and start with number 1. Now, before I tell you about number 1, my background in sales, as I mentioned, 9 jobs in the first 6 years, but once I finally landed on my feet, I landed with a small pharmaceutical company, an entrepreneurial pharmaceutical company out of Madison, Mississippi, which is just north of Jackson. And it was a coveted job. At that time, everybody was looking for pharmaceutical jobs. They would apply for them, and they would search them for years, 2, 3, 4 years, apply to them, go through interview after interview after interview, and never get the opportunity to become a sales professional. So I felt very lucky, very fortunate, very blessed to have that opportunity fall in my lap. I won't tell the full story, but that's where I started. And they were a small entrepreneurial company, and what that meant was they weren't going to give us a budget to go and wine dine doctors, take them out, spend money on them. They gave us no budget at all. That's not true. They gave us $20 a month to buy candy and cookies and all that kind of stuff, but I never used it. And they knew they weren't going to give us that budget, so we weren't going to be able to get the time or buy the time with the sales professionals, with the doctors, that most sales professionals did that we were competing against, so they had to give us the ability to sell. I mean, on a ninja level, and that's exactly what they did. And so this first step that I'm going to share with you came from my experience there. Basically, long story short, they sent us training manuals and said, for 2 weeks, you're going to be home study. And you learn this information and you come to training, and we're going to test you on this information. If you don't know that information, we're sending you home before training even begins. I was scared to death to fail because 9 jobs in 6 years, I was done with it, right? I'd had a lot of success in inside sales that sixth year of my career. I had a few runs in outside sales. That's where the 9 jobs in 6 years came from. But I didn't want to fail anymore. I had just got engaged. This was a brand new job. I wanted to prove myself, and I wanted to be able to support my brand new wife whenever we got married. So I was motivated and I was committed, right? And so we show up for 2 weeks of training after that 2 weeks of home study. And for probably the first couple of days of that training, they did a deep dive on the product knowledge and gave us all the ins and outs of the disease state we were treating, how the drugs work compared to the competitors, showed us the competition, and then taught us the sales process. But then it got serious, because from the 3rd day, 4th and 5th, then we got to go home for the weekend to refresh and regroup. Then they brought us in the 2nd week, so that for that 3rd, 4th, and 5th day, and then 5 days of the 2nd week, here's what we did. Without exaggeration, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5, sometimes 6 o'clock at night, we would role play. So the first thing I'm going to tell you about is role playing. Now here's what I know. I know on the surface it's like, oh, here we go. My salespeople hate role play. Yes, they do. But they've never experienced role play the way that I did, and that way that this company shared with it, put me through it, and I'm going to share it with you because I think you're going to see the merit in it. But I know you're tempted to think, you know, we've tried that before. My salespeople weren't into it. They pushed back. They cried like babies. They whined until we stopped. I understand. I know. Because since I started my company, I.N.F.L.U.E.N.C.E Seminars 10 years ago, I've been working with companies. Here's the background. I've worked for a total of 15 different companies in a sales capacity, and I've worked with over 200 companies that are sales organizations for the past 10 years. That's a lot of companies. I've got a lot of perspective. I've seen this time and time again in many different forms, and it doesn't even touch what I learned at the small pharmaceutical company. So I want to share it with you, because what they would do is that they would put us in the room. They would take the sales conversation that they taught us, or the sales process that they taught us. They taught us a conversation that if we had 2 hours with a doctor or 20 minutes with a doctor, we'd really develop and evolve and educate the doctors on a very high level and a very deep level, but they knew that most times we were only going to have anywhere from 20 to maybe 60 seconds with a doctor. So how do we cram all of this information into this tiny space? How do we change on a dime? And how can we handle anything? So they broke apart the sales process, and for 8 days, 3 and then 5, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, they brought us through a process that broke us down, lifted us up, and made us strong as steel. When we went out into the field for our very first call with doctors, all the way, I called on some of those doctors for 8 years, I could handle anything. And if I couldn't handle it, I knew how to handle it until I could find the answer from the right people and then come back and leverage it. And that's what I want to show you here. So basically what they would do, and here's what I recommend that you do. And if you do this right, it can absolutely get you results beyond what you can even imagine. If you do it wrong, it can destroy your sales team. I'm sorry, but it's absolutely true. So if you like this idea and you need my help, reach out to me. Let's strategize. We can have a conversation. We'll strategize something. But here's what happened. Here's the basics of how it went down. So they would pair us up with one of our counterparts, and they would give us a small chunk of the sales conversation in a particular product and its features and benefits, and they tell us to role play, so we practice it. And we practiced it over and over and over again. They gave us the verbiage, we practiced it, and then when we felt comfortable with it, they'd separate us out. There were 4 different rooms, and we would go in as reps with one of the instructors, be it the director of training or one of our sales managers or a sales manager from another district. We would go in this room, we'd walk into the room, and we would role play with that instructor being the doctor, us being the sales rep, and they would video record it. Ouch. You think your sales professionals whine about role playing a couple of times in a sales meeting? So they would do that, but it gets better. That's why I said if you do this right, it can change the game, but if you do it wrong, it can destroy your sales team. I won't let that happen. So I'm sharing with you. And so we'd go and we'd role play on video. Everybody would get finished. We'd come back into the main training room. They'd put it up on a TV in front of the room, and one by one, they would play each person's video so that they get to see it. And I don't know if you've ever seen yourself in video. I don't know if you like yourself on video, but it's one of the most painful things to see, at least at first, because that emotion that you went through in the sales process or in the role play process is fresh. It's like a fresh wound, right? And so not only would you have to watch it, but you were watching it in front of your peers, and not only were you watching it in front of your peers, the instructors were all picking you apart, and then they let your counterparts or your colleagues pick you apart, other sales reps pick you apart. Now obviously the other sales reps, after the instructors try to tear you down, your peers are saying, oh no, it was good, man, you did this right and all that kind of stuff. But the training director and the manager would say, no, tell him what he can do better. I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. So Dwayne, how can that be productive? How can that be helpful? I'll blow out my entire sales team. Here's why, and here's how it can work if you do it right. The first thing you have to do is make sure before you even announce doing something like this that you have built a relationship of trust with every rep on your sales team to where they know that no matter what happens, you have their back. You're not going to give up on them. You're not going to, when they get done, say, gotcha, and fire them. There's no consequence for pushing through and doing it badly. But on the other side is your support, the company support, and a whole lot of great results. And you have to reinforce that with them and ease them into the process. But if you do that effectively, and that's what they did with us. I mean, honestly, they were like, this is what you're gonna do. And if you don't like it, get out the door. And I'm not suggesting you do that. In fact, just to prove that, I remember a couple of years into it, they brought me back as a product specialist. I can't remember the name of it. It was I was a peer trainer. And they would fly me all over the country, these different districts, to ride along with my peers and guide them through the process, just like my managers were riding along with me. And one time I got to go back into the training room when a new group of trainees was coming through. This was their new hire process. And I got to watch and I got to help. But I remember one time, everybody was doing well, the same process existed, and everybody was going through it, but this one guy could not wrap his head around the process, and he froze. And I remember the instructor saying, well, this is the process and this is what you have to do. And he just shut down. Well, we took a break. I think it was for lunch. We came back. The dude was not there anymore. So it was do or die, but I will say this, for those of us who were serious about the process, we knew, and I don't know what happened before I got to see what happened with this guy. I don't know how they set it up. I don't know if he missed something, he wasn't paying attention to something, he wasn't brought in the right way, but it wasn't commonplace. This was an exception to the rule. But everybody else, as we went through this process, yes, it was painful. Yes, it hurt. Yes, we wanted to run away. Yes, we wanted to pack our suitcase in the middle of the night and head back home. But we bonded as a team and we encouraged each other to push through this process. And whenever we graduated from this process, every one of us was loaded for bear, ready to go, and our sales results crushed. In fact, here's what happened. I was selling at that time, fresh out of the gate, probably 5 different products. My last year with this company, I ended up launching 9 products, and probably in my 2.5 years there had a total of 26 products to pitch to a doctor in a 30-second window. But there was nothing that I could handle. I remember my first day out in the field after having gone through this 2-week process. I was scared to death. But when I stepped in front of the doctor and had that first conversation, I knew exactly what to do. I was confident, I was strong, ended up asking the doctor for the business, and was able to succeed in calling on doctors. Now, I'll be honest with you, and we're going to get to this here in a second. It took a while to succeed, but I followed this process, and I never felt like I couldn't do it. They set me up for success by pushing me through role play and bringing me and coaching me through repetition. If you're an athlete, or if you're a musician, you play an instrument, or if you're an art, or there's any other discipline that you've had outside of selling, you know to become good at it, first you're bad at it. And you have to be willing to do that. Failure is the only way to success. If you work out, you know that to be the case. Well, it's no different with sales. And the more we bring our reps through the process, coach them through the process, guide them the right way through the process, push them through that discomfort, and wait on the other side with our full support and our encouragement, that can take them to the next level in exceeding their sales goals in record time. But it's like anything else, there's got to be repetition, right? And so I encourage you to start small, to start slow, build the relationships, let them know you have their back, and then maybe start doing this in your weekly sales meeting. If you want to go full out and take a week to do this once a day, or make this part of your new hire process, there's so many levels. You can start basic and you can ramp up to where it becomes part of the culture, and that's what I would recommend you do. So that's the first thing, role play and role play and role play and role play and role play. But here's what I'm going to say. You as a sales leader, you as a sales manager, need to be able to not only allow them to role play, you got to be willing to step in there with them and role play as the rep and as the prospect / customer, which means you're gonna have to make yourself vulnerable. I first saw this happen with one of my big clients, Capital One Bank, when I first started my company, and they were bringing the sales reps and the managers through a brand new process, and I was so blown away that not only were the sales reps required to role play and go through this process, not only were the managers required to know exactly the sales process so that they could show coach it and model it for the sales rep, but the district managers, the regional managers, and the president in that particular area, president in the next state, and they were rolling out. So it was just a couple of presidents in that role. Every single person, from the frontline people all the way to the top, could execute, get in there, and role play that sales conversation. It was absolutely amazing. And the better that you're able to do that and make yourself vulnerable and put yourself on the spot, the quicker you're going to build trust and relationship, and the quicker your people are going to buy into this. So the first step is to create a culture of role play, push through that process, offer your support, and it may take a little while, but the results will pay off huge, time and time and time again. So the second step is ask more. And what I mean by that is that so many times your reps will give a great presentation, have a great sales conversation, and you know this, you've seen it, only get to the end of that process or that presentation or that conversation and never ask for the business. And I'm opposed to using closing tactics and closing techniques and closing lines. I had a mentor that really impressed upon me one time. He said, Dwayne, if you have to close, you don't know how to sell. And what he meant by that was that if you handle the process, the sales process and the sales conversation right from the beginning, and you do a great job, then closing is it should be nothing more than simply saying, here's a solution we created. Would you like to implement it? Or would you like my help? Or what should we do next? And if you've done everything right, and I've seen it throughout my sales career to be the case, that if you do it right, if you simply ask, the business comes. But you have to ask. And so my encouragement to you is to set more ask goals. Or as they talk about in the book, Go for No, more no goals, to have your reps aim for asking more often. Even if they've gone through the process and they don't feel like they've earned the right to close, which I think that's the dumbest, I mean, I've always thought that was just a stupid train of thought. If you have something valuable for the customer and you put yourself in front of the customer on some level, you've earned the right to close, even if you've done a bad presentation, because you're there to serve and to help them. So maybe that's the culture you create with your reps and say, listen, just ask. Even if you think you messed up the whole presentation, just ask. I'll never forget. This didn't happen that long ago. I was in a room full of real estate investors, and I delivered my face off. I taught my face off for an hour and a half to complete strangers. And I just delivered tons of value, and I was strong, and it was one of my best performances. And at the end, I went through the sales pitch, if you will, to ask them to pay to come and join me in an open seminar. I stepped all over myself. I sputtered my words. I was messing up my flip charts, and I'm thinking, this is going bad. I'm sweating profusely. But at the end of it, I asked. And I don't remember the exact number, but we filled a one-day live training and a half-day training. And in that moment, I closed, I think we were selling tickets for $497. I ended up closing $3,250 worth of business in those 2 days in a group of strangers. Now, could I have done better? Absolutely, and it probably would have went better. If I'd have known my audience better, it would have went better. But even though I was uncomfortable and didn't feel like I did my best job on the sales pitch, I still asked, and it converted. And that's what I'm saying. We have to get our people in the habit of asking more. And here's how this pharmaceutical company set ask more goals for me. They required me to go out from day one, and evermore was their standard. Dwayne, we want you to call on 10 to 12 doctors every single day, 5 days a week without fail, and 6 pharmacies. That was a ton of activity. And I didn't know it back then, but what they were doing was increasing the amount of repetition. And they used to say it this way, you need to get the right message in front of the right doctor the right number of times. But now there's a book called Go for No, and what I came to understand was they were upping my no quotient, as they say in the book. And so by the very nature, here's what happened. Because I set that tone, 10 to 12 doctors a day, 6 pharmacies a day, by nature, I was asking more. It still took me, and this is the nature of that profession, it still took me 4 months of 10 to 12 doctors and 6 pharmacies a day to get my first doctor to ever write my script. But shortly after that, another doctor wrote, and then another doctor wrote, and boom. I took a territory that they were about to shut down before they hired me. They didn't tell me this till later. And I took a territory that they were about to give up on and shut down, and took it to the top 10 of the company, and even spiking in the top 5 by simply following the process they gave me. I asked more, I showed up more, I was consistent more. And by doing that, and here's the kicker, my main product, my flagship product, this just shows that you don't have to be extraordinary at selling or having a sales conversation. You just got to ask more, and you got to show up more. I was selling repackaged Benadryl and a sketchy sample with a poor marketing brochure, and my enthusiasm. And it just shows that showing up, building trust and consistency with your prospects, with your customers, can do amazing things if you'll simply ask, right? And then the final thing, number 3, on top of asking more, is follow up. I won't bore you with all the details. If you Google sales statistics and you hit images, you'll see there's a statistic that talks about how many sales calls the average person makes, how many times they ask for the order, how many times they follow up. And the long story short is that most people give up after the first or second try, especially when it comes to following up. But it takes an average of, I think it was 10 to 12 follow-ups asking for the business before the customer will say yes. There's a marketing statistic that says a complete stranger has to see your marketing message at least 7 times before they'll go from, I don't know who this person is or this company is, to yes, I want to buy from you. And it generally takes 27 exposures to get those 7 to 9, I'm not remembering the numbers specifically, but to get those amount of recognitions to where people convert. But where do our salespeople give up? First, second, third try maybe? If they're really ambitious, 5? But it takes 12 to follow up. So set follow-up goals for your people. Set the expectation and let them know, listen, even if it goes bad, even if they tell you no, even if they do not respond, follow up at least 12 times. That's your goal, right? And make sure every time you ask, whether it's for the business itself or for the next step in the process, and to find out what that process is. But remember that if they don't practice how they're going to go through the process, what they're going to say, and not a script, but a framework, whatever that is for you guys. If you need one, let me know. If you guys have not been through any form of sales training, reach out to me. I can help out with that. But even if you've studied with the major companies out there, I won't name any names, that do sales training, or some of the major gurus out there that do sales, here's the thing, here's the bottom line. All the product knowledge, all the sales training in the world is not going to get you that result of consistent, sustainable, ongoing sales growth. It takes much more than that. It takes what I call comprehensive sales influence, but this is a foundation of that. There's so much more to talk about. But if you will bring this to your people and you will incorporate each one of these steps over time into your culture, if you want to be fast, if you want to be aggressive about it, and get started now and just really commit full throttle, the results you can see by the end of the month, will be absolutely extraordinary. If you need my help, I'd love to help you. So I hope that this has served you. If you would like to have a strategy session or work with me or talk through it, just reach out to me. We can have a no obligation free strategy session. I'd love to help you put something together that you can go out and incorporate with your sales team. But if you like this video, let me know. Simply either respond to the email that I sent to you, letting you know that you want more training. I've got 3 more free videos that you can simply play for your people that talk about how to bridge that gap between sales training, product knowledge, and achieving ongoing sustainable sales growth. And I pull apart those elements of influence that bridge that gap and help you to get consistent, measurable results. So until we talk again, go out, apply this stuff, and I want to hear how it worked with your sales team. I want to hear about specific results. Do me a favor, reply to this and let me know one thing. What is the biggest challenge as a sales leader or as a sales manager that you're dealing with when it comes to getting your sales reps to perform consistently, to meet or exceed their sales goals consistently? Because I've shared 3 things with you that I believe will move the needle for you guys and change things, but I want to hear from you. What is it specifically that you see as the biggest challenge you face in getting them to bridge that gap between sales training, product knowledge, and being consistent and predictable? In your own words, your own estimations. Hit reply, or if there's a place down here to leave a comment, do that. It's been a pleasure serving you. Again, my name is Dwayne Huff, founder and CEO of Influence Seminars, 23-year sales veteran, if I didn't mention that, and creator of comprehensive sales influence training. Until we talk again, have a great day. And remember, the key to bridging that gap is comprehensive sales influence. It starts right here. Role play. Get them to ask more, get them to follow up more consistently, and you will see an uptick in your sales. You'll be able to sell more consistently starting right now. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.